Though Vikings are known for pillaging the coasts of Europe, Viking facts reveal that the marauders were more than just bearded warriors filled with bloodthirsty rage. Analysis of what Vikings ate shows that the ancient Norse people had surprisingly modern appetites. The Viking diet went beyond slabs of meat and tankards of mead to include a healthy balance of vegetables and breakfast staples like yogurt. The perception of Vikings as crude, dirty troublemakers doesn't match up with the refined nature of their meals. Viking cuisine incorporated a range of food and drink options, creating the balanced diet that made Viking men such notorious bruisers. Here are the Viking diets that were surprisingly healthy and well-rounded. Number 1. Vikings traveled with preserved fish to keep them full of protein. Fish were one of the fundamental staples of the Viking diet. Vikings fished rivers, lakes, streams, and oceans to dine on saltwater and freshwater fish alike. Like their meats, Vikings smoked, salted, and dried fish so they could pack it for long voyages at sea, as well as to preserve it over long winter months. Herring was ubiquitous on Viking plates, and Vikings made a dried cod dish known as stockfish, which historians think may have been traded throughout Europe. Number 2. The Vikings made a lot of dairy products, including a multi-purpose yogurt. Vikings had cows, sheep, and goats, so they had many types of milk. Because it was difficult to keep foods from going bad, they often used milk to produce fermented dairy products of some kind. They made butter, cheese, yogurt, and a specialty called skyr. Skyr, which translates to curds, is a soft, yogurt-like cheese that Vikings stored and kept over the winter when fresh milk was unavailable. To make skyr, Vikings heated up skimmed milk and left it out to curdle and develop cultures. Once curdled, they strained the curdled mixture through cloth, scraping the yogurt from the fabric. The thick whey that remained didn't go to waste. Vikings drank the liquid by itself, pickled vegetables with it, and used it to preserve meats. The Vikings also kept sour milk, which they would add to bread and other foods. Number 3. Boiled meat was a key ingredient at the dinner table. The Vikings' preferred method of cooking meat was to boil it. Hunters often caught reindeer, elk, or even bear, and farmers raised horses, cows, and pigs for consumption. Viking cooks usually boiled the protein in a cauldron over a fire. For unusually large feasts, they would dig pits in the ground, line them with wood, then fill the holes with water and hot stones to get a simmer going. That boiled meat would form the base of a stew called skås. Skås was the backbone of the Viking diet, since it was always cooking in a Viking kitchen. Once the boiled meat was removed from the cauldron or pit, the liquid would be left behind to cook more vegetables and meat, generating more flavor over days and weeks. When left sitting overnight, a layer of fat would rise to the top of the skås, which both preserved the stew and made it relatively healthier. Number 4. They didn't shy away from fruits and vegetables. With gardens overflowing with onions, cabbage, beans, celery, carrots, and peas, the Vikings were no strangers to vegetables. They supplemented their crops by gathering wild greens and seaweed. The Viking diet had plenty of flavors, too, thanks to the use of spices like mustard, horseradish, and cumin. Vikings also relied heavily on foraged fruits, nuts, and seeds. Since the winters were so harsh, Vikings kept stores of dried berries, plums, and apples that allowed them to enjoy fruit year-round. Farmers also incorporated seeds, fruit, and nuts, such as walnuts and hazelnuts, into bread and ground them into oils. Number 5. Vikings preferred multigrain breads. Vikings ate skås with multigrain bread, another daily staple in their diet. Vikings made their bread from a mix of grains, wheat, barley, oats, and rye, beans, honey, nuts, and ground tree bark that added a healthy touch to the loaves. Vikings often made bread in a skillet placed below the skås cauldron in cooking fires. This type of bread would harden as it cooled, so the skås stew was great for softening up old loaves. The Vikings would also take old bread dough to make loaves of sourdough bread. Before we'll tell you more about Vikings' diet, be sure to subscribe to Facts Detective and click the notification bell for more upcoming videos. Number 6. Vikings were efficient farmers and hunters. The Vikings had to keep an eye on the seasons and plan for the year accordingly, but compared to the average medieval person, they had one of the most balanced and nutritious diets. Archaeological evidence from latrines and dumps shows that Vikings were pretty resourceful when it came to what they ate. Geography influenced the types of ingredients that were available, and as the Vikings made their way to new areas, they brought their farming and hunting techniques with them. Vikings grew vegetable gardens and even cultivated fruit orchards. They also hunted whatever was available, including elk, boar, deer, bear, and seal. Number 7. Vikings ate birds and their eggs. Land and sea animals weren't the only protein sources for Vikings. Birds and eggs were also common ingredients in their meals. Based on excavations, the auk, a large bird that is now extinct, was essential to local diets. Vikings also scaled cliffs to track seabirds and lowered themselves using ropes to gather eggs directly from nests. Viking farmers raised domesticated chickens to provide fresh eggs. Number 8. Some Viking dishes didn't sit well with the Catholic Church. Since Vikings had to make do with what was available, the types of meat they ate could vary. Fish and other sea creatures were staples throughout the Viking world. In Greenland, Vikings ate a lot of seals, and they may have eaten walrus as well. Vikings also raised horses as a common source of food before the spread of Christianity. Pope Gregory III issued a papal edict banning the consumption of horse meat in 732 CE due to its connection to pagan rituals, specifically those meant to honor the Norse god Odin. Lastly, number 9. Vikings of all ages drank ale instead of water. Water could be dangerous to drink in Viking villages, so ale became a fixture alongside meals. Viking ale derived from malted barley and came in two forms, strong and weak. The weak beer was light enough for children to drink, and served as a general companion to salty stockfish and dried meats. The stronger version was uncorked for festive occasions alongside batches of mead. Vikings made mead out of fermented honey, but that wasn't the only use for the syrup. Honey was the only sweetener at the Vikings' disposal, and they got creative with it. They added honey to bread and served it with fresh and dried fruit as a dessert. Please subscribe and click the notification bell for more upcoming videos. Thank you.